What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Technology. For some reason, most of those who have heard of this car are convinced it's aluminum. In fact, the basis of the car in the form of the frame, engine shield, and interior cage, including body sills, middle spar, yes, that's what it is called, and middle struts are steel. Steel hinges, body side edge trim, door and roof frame are also steel. There is enough aluminum, all plumage is made of it, hood, front panel, front wings, and the whole rear part of the body, the so-called boat, cargo compartment with the roof racks, wings and arches, glass frame, and even floor panels. By the way, all these elements are removable, including the floors. The frames are mainly short with a base of 93 inches, medium with a base of 110 inches and long 127 inch. The cars in these versions can be distinguished by the indices, respectively, 90, 110 and 127, later, 130. The frames are divided into civilian and military, reinforced. By the way, 127-inch frames were welded for a good 10 years, simply cutting and lengthening frames of 110. Those who are familiar with UAZ vehicles will find a lot of similarities in production processes. A huge number of bodies can be installed on 3 different chassis, from standard closed 3 and 5-door to pickups, campers, and customized variants. 2 to 3 axles can be installed under the body. Of course, not split axles, with fastening on the classic clubs of double wishbone dependent suspension. There's a whole bunch of different axles too. Standard front axles are Rover 10 and 24 spline, Rover P38A 24 spline, simple Salisbury, Reader's Salisbury, and Salisbury 8HA 24 spline. The axles could also be somewhat less standard, for example, with wheel reducers, lockers, and reinforced ones, such as the Volvo 303C Laplanders. Of course, there are also many gearboxes. The oldest usually have LT77 transmission. Since 1995 they began to put a 380, sometimes LT85, on military and early turbo diesel cars. Since 2003 there were M82 from Ford. But it was possible to order anything you wanted. Transfer cases are available with a rigid connection of the front axle and with permanent 4-wheel drive. There are again with locks. There are custom made for 3 axles. There are variants with universal joint shafts for additional equipment. There are either Land Rover LT230 with reduction gear and interaxle differential with locking, or similar in functionality Borg-Warner. With the engines, too, everything is not very simple. Initially, the model was equipped with different versions of proper British Rover diesel engines with the volume from 2.25 to 2.5 litres and a wide range of gasoline engines from inline 4s, 2.5 to 3.9 litre V8 again made by Rover. At the time when the company was owned by Germans from BMW, there were versions with inline 6s M52, and in 2000s the main part of cars was already with Ford turbodiesel's Puma. Defender was produced not only in England, but also in South Africa, Australia, Spain, Italy, Turkey, and Iran, with different degree of localization. Under the hood of these cars could be diesel engines Iveco, Isuzu, or even Mitsubishi Hyundai. Timeline: August 1983. Appearance of Land Rover 110 models. Soon the lineup was extended by models 90 and 127. The models were based on Land Rover Series IIA, but the car received spring suspension, other motors, new interior, higher windshield, and permanent all-wheel drive. Appearance of 90 and 110 with a long hood and wideners of the arches will become canonical for the entire Defender lineup. It is with this model you can begin the history of the Defender proper. Diesel engines are 2.25 litre with 57 horsepower and 2.5 litre with 68 horsepower. The gasoline lineup is represented by a 2.25 litre motor with 75 horsepower and a 3.2 litre V8 with 114 horsepower. 1985. Modernization of motors. They stopped putting the old 2.25 litre diesels. Diesel 2.5 litre received a lot of modernizations, aimed at improving reliability. There was a turbo version of the 2.5 litre diesel with an output of 85 horsepower. There was also a new gasoline engine 2.5 litre 83 horsepower, and the power of gasoline 3.2 was brought up to 134 horsepower by installing SU carburetors instead of Zenith. November 1990. The appearance of the Defender name. In fact, the new model was the result of modernization of the 90 and 110 models, but with new engines, interiors, and climate control system. The model had to come up with a marketing name, because in the Land Rover family, in addition to Range Rover, there was also Discovery. So it was necessary to call the old family of cars somehow. In this family, the model with a base of 93 inches became available with a V8 engine, while previously such engines were assigned only to long versions. The 2.5-litre turbo diesel was completely redesigned, receiving an aluminum cylinder head, fully closed VKG with a separator and an output of 107 horsepower. Such cars received the name 200 TDI. The 127 model changed its name to 130, at the same time receiving a completely owned frame. Earlier, as mentioned above, it was made by cutting the frame of 110 and welding spaces. 1992. Appearance of the Anniversary Series SV90 with alloy wheels and metallic paint. Summer 1994. Appearance of a new engine, designated 300 TDI, with an output of 111 horsepower. This is a seriously redesigned old 2.5-litre diesel, but almost all its elements are modernized. In particular, the layout of attachments was completely changed. As a result, the motor was unified with one on Discovery and at the same time became quieter and more tractive. Summer 1998. The basic turbo diesel was replaced by an all-new model designated TD5 122 horsepower. It is an inline 5-cylinder engine with pump jets. A limited edition was released to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 90 series. These cars were first equipped with 4.0 V8 engine and automatic transmission. August 2006. Ford modernization. The main differences: a new 6-speed automatic transmission from the line of Ford MT82 units and Ford turbo diesel 2.4 liters and 122 horsepower from the commercial line Puma. At the same time, modernization of interior, climate control system, appearance of mandatory ESP system. August 2011. Update of exterior and interior. Diesel 2.4 is replaced by Diesel 2.2 of the same lineup of the same power, but with particulate filter. January 29, 2016. The last Defender is released. It is a Series 90 soft-top vehicle. Production of military modifications and small production cars continues nominally to this day. Bodywork. Exterior panels. Most Defenders are used for their intended purpose, and a very small number are used exclusively for representational purposes. For us, this means that almost any car available for purchase will show signs of off-road use. Of course, aluminum panels do not corrode in the usual sense, but, as I have already written above, the car is made not only of aluminum, and it itself in close proximity to steel is destroyed. The main attention should be paid to the engine shield. Its upper part is clearly visible under the windshield frame. And besides, body sills, middle pillars, and even doors, because they are based on steel pipes and steel frame. The upper lining of the sides of the boat, cargo and passenger compartment, is rotting, especially in the rear part, above the lights. The corrosion of the front and rear bumper and the frame itself, especially at the rear, is also clearly visible. You don't even need to get under the car to assess it. The engine shield is one of the main elements of the car, along with the frame, and it is nominally non-replaceable. The VIN plate is attached to it with 6 rivets. In practice, the shield is perfectly changeable. Rivets are on sale, but any serious measures to replace it increase the chances of examination in GIBDD. At the same time, the shield rots very well, and its full condition can be assessed by looking in the area of the driver's pedals from under the hood. It has a lot of dings, rivets, screw connections, and all of them are catalysts of corrosion. If it is covered with noise insulation, it is worth removing it. It is quite possible that there will be no metal under it, especially if it was glued from the inside. Thresholds and struts form the power structure of the cage of the salon, and it does not hurt to evaluate them too. They are simple in shape, and it is not difficult to weld new ones from a profile pipe, but it in any case will require complete disassembly of the body. It here is prefabricated. You can remove almost all elements separately. This does not mean that the process is simple and cheap. From the board and thresholds to the doors. Door hinges are actually a consumable item with a service life of 5 to 7 years. Replacement hinges from Britpart cost about €20, and the original ones, from $50. It is necessary to keep an eye on the condition of both the hinge itself and its attachment to the body. The doors themselves are mainly rotten in the lower part, where the rectangular tube rusts inside and the aluminum sheet covering it gradually deteriorates. At the same time inside rust lock brackets, and in neglected cases, and the frame of the door glass. The latter should be poked with something sharp in the presence of bloating. Perhaps there are already holes in it. The nuance is that the swellings and holes will not be on the outer, visible surface, but on the inner surface, accessible only when the door is open. The rear door suffers from corrosion as much as the side doors. It's exactly the same steel pipe underneath, and it rots just the same. And if a spare tire hangs on the door itself will eventually warp. It opens sideways. Heavy wheels try to hang not on the door itself, but on the wicket, an additional tuning element. Holes in the door are closed. By the way, the hinges of the rear door are often torn off, and it is easy to get an injury because of a blow with the door on the back. It is enough to stand in a place with a side slope. In England, tuning of the fifth door with installation of a gas stop is popular. The aluminum plumage and boat, as well as the outer door panels and frame, also suffer from corrosion, although to a lesser extent. Mostly aluminum crumbles next to rusting steel parts, for example, at the bottom of the doors, along the contact surface of the windshield frame, on the panels covering the front of the rear arch or where dirt accumulates in the front arches. A lot of problems come from unsuccessfully installed rivets. If the material is poorly selected, they cause electrochemical corrosion of the panel around them. Especially fantastic cases are the installation of copper or copper-plated steel rivets, which cause instant destruction of aluminum in the vicinity. A separate conversation is about the tightness of the bodywork. The quality of panel fitting is low, the body walks. Rear sliding windows do not have normal seals and locks. Where there are seals, they are very weak. In general, it's not a good idea to store your car outside in cold and wet climates because the body leaks. It doesn't, it leaks. The junction of the roof and frame leaks on the driver and dashboard, hatches and the junction of the frame with the engine panel. Leaks on the legs, through the holes of the engine panel leaks into the legs. The door openings leak from above in the rain so that the windows, floors, and seat cushions get wet. When buying, it's worth checking how dry it is inside. This is also important because a current body usually means that its strength structure is compromised, rivets torn, and fasteners ripped out. If the bodywork is dry, everything is likely to be fine. However, many problems are inherent in the design. For example, the foam gasket between the frame and the roof will definitely decay over time. At the same time, it may even break the frame in half. Aluminum also cannot withstand the constant moisture and the neighborhood with the steel frame of the roof. Detail original price of non-original 2 body parts front halogen headlight 9016 not available windshield. 37,747 not available front side wing 17,227 Britpart 16,791 engine shield 581 420 not available hood 8,421 not available rear boat. Assembly 110 bodywork 636 117 not available bottom. Frame on the elevator. It is certainly worth assessing the condition of the frame and the VIN on it. It rusts very well, especially in long wheelbase cars, where torsional loads are much higher than in the short version. Since there are not many purely urban cars in the Defender population, a lot depends on storage conditions and what kind of off-roading the car is being driven on. In particular, how often the car is submerged in water. I remind, the car has a standard snorkel, which directly provokes the owners to go forward. The main vulnerable points are the cross-member attachment points, to which the clubs of suspensions are attached, here first of all cracks are formed, and corrosion of seams also comes out first of all. Trailer pullers often suffer damage to the rear frame braces and the rear part of the spars. Frame outriggers suffer both in the places of welding with the spars and in the places of contact with the body. All minor brackets are badly rotted. The longitudinal frame members themselves are weak in the front part, where the lift starts and there is a bracket for fixing the front suspension rods, and in the rear part, in front of the wheel arch, also in the place of lift. But oiling from the engine often plays the role of bad, but antica, so in the rear part of the frame still elements rot more strongly. Especially if the car was regularly driven in the water and did not wash the internal cavities of the frame. Fortunately, most owners are aware of frame problems and are aware of how much a new one costs. So it's taken care of at least a little bit. Anti-corrosion of the frame and even hot-dip galvanizing are found, and this is good. The body itself from the bottom cannot surprise anything. Thresholds and power elements can be seen better just with open doors. From below, it makes sense to look only at the central elements of the frame and transverse connections of the floor. Floors are mainly aluminum, box profile under the front seats, and at the back and the legs of passengers the plates are removable. Plumage and rear arches are again aluminum. The rest of the components, including the front floors and the boxes under the seats, can be removed by cutting off the rivets. Corrosion is mainly due to either unsuccessful fastening of mudguards and sills, or to years of wet dirt buildup. There are plenty of places for this to collect, especially at the rear of the body, in front of the wheel arches. In 300 TDI and earlier models, the steel fuel tank can be corroded, while in later variants it is plastic. Body equipment's simple burnout headlights and the simplest drive of windshield wipers cannot cause much trouble. Almost all elements are made very strong to withstand many years of off-road and rural use, and therefore, they cannot break themselves at all will. Door locks are also primitive, and this is not only a plus, but also a minus. The shape of their brackets is such that Tofovidov often tear clothes about them by carelessness and, as a consequence, try to kolhose him locks. It is not worth saying that the windshield is easily rubbed and cracked by stones, it just has such a shape. Interior. Defender has an interior. Here it is the simplest, it can be washed with a hose, and the steel panels and wiring have been covered with plastic and carpet. A couple of funny details. Door handles perfectly fit from PAZ buses, and they are paradoxically better in quality than original ones. And door trims were probably sawed with a jigsaw from a whole piece of plastic. The main problems here are with comfort and climate. Ergonomics will make you try to put your left elbow out the window at the first opportunity. The driver's seat is shifted outward, and the steering wheel still stands slightly sideways. The steering wheel itself is ugly, though in practice it's quite comfortable. Besides, its covering is not afraid of oil and dirt, both plastic and leather. For aesthetic reasons, it is often changed for Italian Momo, but there is no cushion in the steering wheel anyway. The scattering of buttons on the dashboard and the simplest gauges on cars up to 2007 model year make you long for the 70s. Later, the dashboard was modernized, and the front fascia was raised to accommodate a full-fledged climate control system. A chronic problem of cars before 2007 was the cabin air intake. The intake point in the right fender was flooded. On off-road it was clogged with mud. Then the water was driven into the cabin by the fan, and in winter it was clogged with snow and ice. As a result, always sweating windows and dependence of airflow on speed. In 2007, the intake was made a little differently. They added an overlay covering it from above, but left it on the fender. It stopped flooding, but it is still far from ideal. Therefore, many owners put a tuning air intake in the form of a mini snorkel. With it the flow is more stable and cleaner. It can be plastic, metal, and even carbon fiber, for any taste and purse. There is nothing to break in climatics. It works in any case not very well, especially, again, before 2007. Passengers in long wheelbase versions have to be very cold in winter. Efficiency of the climate system is calculated, rather based on considerations of operation in Africa than in Siberia. Electrics. There are few electrics in the DEF, and they are old school. The most part of buttons and switches is borrowed from cheap English cars of the 80s. The quality there is corresponding. After 2007, the interior was ennobled with a lot of Ford elements, and the fruits of unification with Discovery began to be felt, but not strongly. The wiring scheme itself is primitive, made simply, even roughly. And yet, breakdowns do happen. So, as a result, minor problems with power relays can be referred to typical ones. In order not to remain a monument dozens of kilometers away from civilization, it is desirable for the owner to learn the purpose of relays, especially since there are only about a dozen of them, and have a spare just in case. If there is a scheme, even a village electrician will probably be able to figure out the system. And very old cars with 200 TDI and 300 TDI engines can work even in the complete absence of power, battery, and generator. Defender, strangely enough, is saved by its high price and outdated design, which make repair and maintenance at a high level more or less cost-effective. As a result, there are good chances to find a car without rotten frame, large-scale kolhoz and aluminum body falling apart around new rivets. And with the rest, as you have understood, it is not difficult to understand. And what is the case with motors, boxes, and chassis? Is it worth to chase for cars with old power units, or Ford ones are quite good too? We'll be looking at these questions in the next installment. In conclusion, the Land Rover Defender presents a unique blend of challenges and strengths. While its body may suffer from leaks and aluminum corrosion over time, the simplicity of its electrical system remains a significant advantage for owners and enthusiasts alike. Understanding these aspects can help you make informed decisions about maintenance and repairs, ensuring that your Defender continues to serve you well on and off the road. Whether you're a seasoned driver or a newcomer to the world of off-roading, the Defender's character and capability are undeniable. Thank you for watching, and we hope this insight helps you appreciate this iconic vehicle even more.